Elon Musk's journey with SpaceX isn't just another success story. It's a masterclass in human engineering. Not because it's inspiring, but because it reveals exactly how a person should function when backed into a corner. There's no hype here and no miracles, just a way of thinking that is cold, calculated, and almost brutal in its clarity. When we hit crisis, our default setting is to swap logic for feelings. If we feel good, we assume we are on track. If we feel exhausted, we assume the world is ending. But your feelings are the most unreliable dashboard in the universe. They are hijacked by how much sleep you got, a stray comment from a stranger, or even what you had for lunch. Navigating by your emotions is like trying to read a compass in a magnetic storm. It's going to spin you in circles. In 2002, Musk flew home from Moscow after a failed attempt to buy a rocket. He didn't sit in his seat stewing in frustration. Instead, he pulled out a piece of paper and started calculating. A ready-made rocket cost $65 million. The global consensus was too expensive, forget it. He asked a different question. What is the literal logic behind this price? What is the rocket actually made of? Aluminum, titanium, copper, carbon fiber. He tallied the raw material cost and realized that they only accounted for 2% for the retail price. Where did the other 98% go? It wasn't a technological barrier. It was just decades of industry overhead and unexamined tradition. He decided to build it himself on the spot. SpaceX was born on the scrap of paper. That decision was about being brave. It was about fundamental shift in how you define a problem. He didn't ask, can I do this? He asked, does the underlying logic of the things hold up? That's the first principles. Don't start with experience. Don't start with other people's conclusions. Strip everything down to the basic facts and recalculate from zero. When most people hit a wall, their first move is to look for a reference point. They look for success stories or find people in the same hall to commiserate with. There's nothing wrong with empathy. But navigating your specific life using someone else's map is a recipe for disaster. You can't see the difference between the map and the ground because you've never actually measured the line beneath your own feet. It gets darker. When those borrowed paths fail, 1, 2, 3 times, your brain starts running a self-protective summary. It's not the master that's broken. It's me. Once that conclusion is encoded, it runs like a silent background process. It won't stop you from trying, but it will whisper, why bother? This probably won't work anyway. The danger of that thought isn't that it makes you quit. It's that it makes you start with discounted energy. Your execution withers. The result is a mess, and that mess validates your original fear. The loop tightens until it becomes your identity. This is just who I am. At that point, you don't have a willpower problem. You have a total crash of your cognitive operating system. Between 2006 and 2008, SpaceX failed 3 times. Elon was out of cash, and Tesla was on the verge of bankruptcy. The world was waiting for the punchline. Conventional wisdom says, 3 failures mean this path is a dead end. But Musk maintains the firewall between single failure and wrong direction. Failure is just engineering data. It tells you which parameters needs a tweak. Direction is your underlying logic. That is determined by your original math, not by a popular vote based on how many times you tripped. If you can't separate the two, you'll burn all your energy on this internal friction of, should I keep going, in a low point. That's a luxury you can't afford. In September 2008, the fourth launch succeeded. A few months later, NASA signed a $1.6 billion contract. If the system stays intact, the window eventually opens. So, strip away the noise. What is your true core asset? Networking is just borrowing influence. Knowledge is fluid. Today's insights are tomorrow's noise. Wealth is the lagging indicator of past performance. The only thing that cannot be taken, cannot be outsourced, and never goes out of data is the body. Every judgment requires your brain to fire. Every execution requires physical stamina. Your emotional stability and the quality of your decisions are hosted on this physiological hardware. Your body isn't a vehicle. It's the infrastructure. The quality of that infrastructure sets the hard ceiling for everything you attempt. Yet, it's the first thing we liquidate. We can't sleep to get ahead, skip training because we're stressed, and dump junk food into the engine when we feel low. In business, that's called cognitive inversion. Using your most vital assets to pay off a cheap short-term debt. That debt has interest, and it's not linear. It will settle the score by crushing your health and your judgment simultaneously right when you need them most. This is why your weight and your energy levels aren't about aesthetics. They are the most honest readouts in your system. They don't offer encouragement and they don't lie. Your sleep, your stress, your nutrition, every input is converted into a single number or a state of being. That number knows more about your lifestyle than you do. Most people deal with this data emotionally. If the number is high, they feel guilty. They stay stuck in the same habits. And they wait for the next time they see the scale to feel guilty again. That's not management. That's an emotional loop with zero output. Using first principles, the question changes. Where's the system error behind this number? Don't ask, why do I have willpower? That's a soft question. Ask, are my stress hormones chronically high? What is my actually recovery quality? What is the real gap between my intake and expenditure? When you peel away the emotional safe and look at yourself as a system, the question shifts from, am I good enough? To what needs an adjustment? You move from the defendant's chair to the engineer's workbench. The how-to is never the real handle. Fasting, lifting, cardio, they all work physically. We fail because before we even take the first step, our brain has already sabotaged the ending with that whisper. This won't work. So, the real hacks are in the system design. Audit before you aim. Stop screaming about target weights. That's just a new source of stress. Start by recording the data exactly as it is. No judgment, like must calculating raw materials. Once you know the true cost, you know where the margin is. Focus on the minimum controllable unit. In a low period, don't try to overhaul your lifestyle. That's just using a grand goal to numb your current powerlessness. Focus on today's protein. Focus on tonight's bedtime. Keep the system from crashing first. Elon solved today's engineering problem. He didn't relitigate the Mars mission after every failed launch. Rebuild trust through training. When you are stuck, you lose the belief that input equals output. Training is one of the few places on Earth that is physically honest. The weight you lift, the distance you run. If the input is right, the result comes. No exceptions, no luck. That experience builds a fundamental in your body that bleeds into your work and your decisions. It gives you back the ability to believe in cause and effect. Elon once said something incredibly grounded. He didn't persist because he was certain he'd succeed, but because giving up would have made him feel worse. No grand speeches. He just chose the path of least drain between two difficult options. Managing your life is the same. Don't rely on willpower to fight desire. Design the system so that the right behavior is the path of least resistance. Don't rely on passion. Rely on the system. It all starts in the same place. Treat yourself as a system. Audit the parameters. Then take the next step. Your body is your true first principle. How far you can go depends entirely how seriously you manage the core asset.